So did Rishi Sunak zero in on net zero to make this era-defining transition fairer and more affordable? Or are his critics right? It's a political move to make green policies a wedge issue ahead of an election. Well, this was the PM at the World Climate Summit 10 months ago.
Putin's abhorrent war in Ukraine and rising energy prices across the world are not a reason to go slow on climate change. They are a reason to act faster.
Yet now he's delayed some key targets. Well, what's changed? The PM argued the UK is a net zero leader, suggesting a bit of wiggle room on rolling out electric vehicles and heat pumps, for example. We've certainly made huge carbon cuts, largely through getting rid of coal and losing much of our heavy industry. But we're hardly streaks ahead of similar-sized economies, and now laggards like the US are cutting emissions far faster. And in specific sectors, we're not doing that well at all. We're hardly the worst in Europe on EV sales, but certainly not leaders compared to some of our bigger, wealthy neighbours. And on heating, we're arguably a loser, with installations of heat pumps per person the lowest in Europe. But is Mr Sunak's plan fairer, especially on the poorest? Well, take electric cars. They're swingingly expensive right now, but some analysts suggest delaying the phase-out of petrol and diesel cars by 5 years could actually cost us more. That's because around 80% of car sales are second-hand. A 5-year delay means more used petrol and diesel vehicles and fewer used, therefore cheaper, EVs. With fuel prices projected to increase beyond 2030, it locks drivers into fossil fuel cars that are more expensive to run and maintain. But does any of this really matter if, as the PM emphasised, he's still committed to legally binding carbon cuts of 67% by 2030 and net zero by 2050? Well, it might. This yellow line shows how our emissions have been falling. And here is the crucial 2030 target, that triangle. The Committee on Climate Change calculated the government's 2023 net zero strategy in green makes it less likely we'd meet that. Well, we don't have all the details yet. This carbon brief analysis suggests the PM's latest announcements in dark blue put us even further off that 2030 target. Already, green groups are threatening a legal challenge over the PM's plan, but he's standing firm.
We're absolutely confident that we are on track to hit all our international and domestic targets, which, by the way, are world-leading. And the reason I have confidence in that is because we've over-delivered on all of our carbon budgets to date.
The ultimate 2050 net zero target is still far enough off to be met, but few experts believe the PM's latest plan makes it in any way easier or cheaper to get there. Perhaps less a sign of someone focused on a low-carbon revolution, more of a leader with his eyes on opinion polls.